Greetings, it's the lady, and I'm here with another life lesson. Listen, if you enjoy learning from others' wins and losses, then please join our budding community here because that's what we talk about on this channel. To get right into it, I want to talk about should Christians be against DEI? Should Christians be against DEI? Now, listen, I know this is a hot button topic right now due to the new administration and all of the moves that it is making. But I have been hearing some things when I'm talking to other believers, and I just felt like this is something that maybe we should address here, okay? Should Christians be against DEI? First of all, what is DEI? Everybody doesn't know. I've been surprised by that as well. But let's talk about it. No shame in it. Let's discuss. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I looked up an article on ABC News dated January 24th, 2025 by Kiera, and I'm about to jack up her last name, Alfonsica, okay? And it's looking at what DEI means amid Trump executive orders, okay? So we're going to jump right into what is DEI's purpose. DEI initiatives are intended to address and correct discriminatory policies or practices that may be found within an organization. That's a simple definition. Address and correct discriminatory policies and practices that may be found within an organization. That can be in education, in the schools, it can be within corporate America or any type of workplace, anywhere. This is where DEI could be applied, okay? And why it was even a thing at all, okay? Diversity, to break each word down, refers to the representation of people from a variety of backgrounds at all levels in an organization. A diversity of races, genders, genders, disabilities, religions, ages, sexual orientations, class status, military service status, etc. Okay? It can also include DEI can also include implementing accessibility measures for people with disabilities, addressing gender pay inequity, expanding recruitment practices among underrepresented demographics, and holding anti-discrimination trainings and more, okay? Equity. It focuses on fairness and impartiality, particularly referring to whether people are being fairly paid, treated, or considered for opportunities. So let's pause right there. I can speak on this from an aspect of, I used to work a job where I had, I was in a position, I made a certain salary, and that company ended up being purchased by another company. When that new company took over the old company, they did somewhat of an audit, okay? And it was at that time that I was informed indirectly that I had been grossly underpaid for the position that I was occupying and fulfilling, okay? And it wasn't until that other company stepped in and did an audit that my salary was adjusted to be more equitable for my skill level, what I was doing in my job, as well as my title was adjusted, okay? Now, that means that up until that point, I was not experiencing equity in my work, in my job. And sometimes you know it and sometimes you don't know it. So DEI is a protection that ensures or tries to help ensure that there is equity in positions. If you're doing the same job as another person who happens to be maybe a white male, Equity says you all are paid the same amount for that work. Now, we all know there are inequities and have been forever when we use these type of examples, okay? That's equity. Inclusion. Inclusion is about whether people feel like they belong and whether they feel heard or valued in an organization. So just to break down DEI, that is specifically what DEI is. And the reasons I wanted to talk about this in light of being people of faith, specifically Christ followers or Christians, I have been seeing where in certain pockets and circles within Christianity and the church that people have been speaking negatively about DEI as if it is ungodly or something like that. And I have to say it's been a little bit triggering hearing these type of narratives, because what DEI is not, which is the narrative that I've been hearing is being pushed. What is not is a handout. It is not whining about, wanting access to something that is unearned. It is not being underqualified and getting in a position as some of the conservatives have been trying to suggest that these tragedies that we've experienced since the beginning of the year in regards to, the airplanes and flights and crashes and this, that, the other, that it was DEI, these terms are DEI hire. And the reality is that no one wants someone to be in a position that they are not qualified for. No one wants to be in a position that they are not qualified for, especially when it comes to a life and death situation, okay? We want to make sure that people are qualified in those positions. The problem is that the diversity, equity, and inclusion is not saying that someone wants to have access to positions or whatever that they're not qualified for. They just simply want the opportunity. They can be qualified for it. The reason why DEI was even put into place is because there was institutionalized discrimination and racism against certain groups. Black folks, women, other people of color, you name it, people with disabilities. When it comes to the church and our mindset about whether it is godly or scriptural or anything like that in regards to DEI. If we think about it, Jesus had a very diverse group of followers. He had men, he had women, he had people from different parts of it wasn't all Jewish people. He had children. He had people of various ages. He had people that were healthy. He had people that were disabled. He had all types of people that followed him and that were disciples of him. Even within the 12 disciples, that was a very diverse and distinct group of people, including women. There were female disciples of Jesus. The idea about diversity is when you have people with different backgrounds, different experiences, different skill sets, they come together and they have a certain goal, work, or focus, whether it's on a job, in education, or organization, that is valuable and impactful to have a diverse work population, a diverse group of people in a neighborhood, in a school, It is beneficial to expose everyone to diversity. It has been scientifically proven. So when we think about diversity or DEI in the church, think about a church that's in a certain neighborhood. Say, for instance, a church is in a Spanish-speaking neighborhood, but all of the members of their church are all Black or all white. And they decide, hey, we want to grow our church. We want to be more impactful in the community. What can we do to attract the people that are in the community? Maybe they would start doing outreach, pamphlets or, flyers or pluggers that was in Spanish. Maybe they would have worship services with Spanish style music, or the lyrics are in Spanish. Maybe they would have translation services that they would implement. And the reason why they're doing this is to attract and include the people in that Spanish-speaking neighborhood, to make them feel welcome and comfortable in that church. They wanted to diversify their congregation. They saw the value in that. So they made certain concessions, they made certain adjustments to attract those people, or to make a space for those people, to include them and to diversify. Equity would be in a scenario like this, where, say, for instance, this same church wanted to hire someone from that community, and this is a person that is a Spanish-speaking person. Equity would mean that if they're coming in and they're hired to do the same job as an English-speaking person, then they would be paid the same amount of money as that other individual. And if they are also English-speaking as well as Spanish-speaking, I would dare say that they need to be paid more than that other individual, because they have a certain skill set that those around them do not have, and they add a certain value to that organization or that church. So it would be equitable for them to actually be compensated more because of that skill set. When we're talking about just in the Bible, our mindset and how we should look at things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, again, we're not talking about someone wanting a handout. How can you say that you are wanting a handout or something when you are actually owed something from the individual or the institution or the governmental body? You're actually owed something, which is the case for Black Americans. So there is no victim mentality when it comes to that. Now, let me say this. Just like with everything else, sometimes people be doing too much. Sometimes people misuse and abuse things that were meant to do good. Have you ever heard of the phrase, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater? The idea is that you just bathe a baby in some water, and now that water is dirty. You want to throw the dirty water out, but you don't want to throw the baby out. The baby is the precious thing. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just throw the dirty bathwater out. It's the same thing with DEI. Yes, maybe some things were, kind of used and got a little wild with some of these ideas and implementing some of these things in the name of DEI. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The reason why DEI was even needed in this country in the first place is because there has been a strong history of discrimination. There has been a strong history of inequitability, if that's a word. If the school that I go to, doesn't have the books that it needs. It doesn't have the computer lab that it needs, but the school that is a town over that is mostly white or Asian or Arab or whatever it is, they have all those things. They have all those resources and tools. Is that equitable? So how can you say that these people over here are begging and, they're not, when they have not been given the same foundation? This is why I think as a church, we have to be very careful when we start to regurgitate narratives and try to rewrite or erase what the realities have been. With that being said, as believers, we know we are in the world, but not of the world. We know that we are not dependent on anything that is going on down here, okay? Although we're not dependent on it, we are spirits having a human experience, and we are planted in this place at this time. So we also cannot ignore that there are certain things and factors that are definitely taking place and have taken place. And I think it just can come off as very insensitive to act like these things don't matter. It is not. DEI is not about victimization, meaning that you having a victim mentality as a person that maybe would benefit from DEI measures. It's saying, I have the ability. Don't block the opportunity from me. It's saying that I can do the job. I can fulfill the whatever. I can pass the courses if I'm allowed into the school. I have the ability. I have the intellect. I have the skill. I have the background. I just need the opportunity. And in certain places, the opportunities were not granted equally to everyone. That's what we're talking about. If we look at even in the word, there's a lot of reference to God talks a lot about looking out for the poor, looking out for the widows, looking out for the fatherless. This is all throughout Scripture. If we want to also talk about the idea of someone being a person that has a lot of value, but they just have not had the opportunity or been exposed to something. Let's take it on the spiritual level of, remember the story of Peter up on the rooftop, and then he has that vision, and God said, Peter, rise up, kill and eat. And he's like, I ain't never ate nothing unclean, Lord. Know what you talking about? No, I'm not doing that. And then God said, don't call unclean what I've called clean. And what God was prepping him for was that he was about to send him to minister to the Gentiles. Cornelius was a great man. He was a devout man. He was a man of prayer and of family, but he was not of the house of Israel. He was not of the tribe of Israel. But God was transitioning some things. Maybe Jesus came to and through the Jewish people, but the whole plan was always John 3:16. For God so loved the world, not just one group, not just one people, the world, that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever, that means anyone, whosoever. We have to remember that this is all inclusive. Everyone has the ability and the right to receive God, to receive Christ. That is the basis of what our faith is on. It's not just for the Jewish people. It wasn't just for, it was in the Bible. We saw the transition, and Peter went with the men that were sent to him from the house of Cornelius, and he went and he ministered to them. And he said when he went to, he was like, this is unheard of for a Jewish person to basically fraternize with the Gentiles. It was a major no-no. But God told him to go. And he went and preached the word to them, shared the good news with them. Same thing, Paul was sent to the Gentiles. Yes, did he speak to the Jewish people and all that stuff, but he was sent to the Gentiles. This is diversity. This is inclusion. This is everyone on an equal playing field in the eyes of God. So if anybody is talking anything besides that and they're taking advantage of people, all throughout the Bible, we talk God is a God of justice. I'm not going to read all of the scriptures that I wrote down, but if you go read Acts chapter 10, starting with verse 9 and going all the way through verse 29, that's the story of Peter going to minister to Cornelius, which was a great man, but he was not Jewish. And this was, again, this was a no-no. Then you have James 5 and 6. God sees what is owed to his people. He sees what is owed to those who have been taken advantage of. There will be retribution and reparations. This is not an ungodly concept. Maybe we don't want to deal with it on that level. Let me say this too. Jesus. As believers, we should not put culture over Christ. We should not put culture over Christ. Okay, that's a period. However, God is the one who made me who I am. And when you look at me, before I open my mouth, maybe you can feel an aura or something from me, but the reality is that if you don't know for sure what my faith is, what I believe, unless I got a t-shirt on. But you know what? One thing for sure, I'm black and I'm a woman. And guess who established that? I didn't have anything to do with that. This is the skin that God put me in. So I think it's also a faulty mindset to try to now erase and ignore that there are certain things that comes with the skin that God put us in. We didn't have anything to do with that. If you're white and you're a man, you didn't have anything to do with that. That's the skin that God put you in. You can go down the list. So we have to make sure that we're not getting into some weird mindset where we just kind of want to, ignore the history of the skin that we're in. That's not putting culture over Christ. That's not putting my blackness over Christ. But I also am very black. I am a Christ follower, yes. But I also am black and I'm a woman. A few other scriptures that pinpoint God's mindset about people who have been mistreated. Isaiah 1, 15 through 17. Psalms 146, starting with verse 3 through 9, talking about fatherlessness and the widows that God fights for these communities, these type of people that God fights on their behalf. And how does God usually fight? He uses people. He uses his people. Luke 18:1 through 8, talking about the unjust judge and the widow. Again, a widow, someone who doesn't have the covering of her husband any longer because he's passed away. And she went to the judge to tell him, hey, I need you to step up and fight for my behalf. I need you to make these people do what they're supposed to do, right by me, in so many words. I'm paraphrasing. And the unjust judge, he didn't care. But because she kept bugging him, she kept protesting, she kept speaking up, he finally was like, he got exasperated, and he was like, okay, go on and give this woman because she's bugging me now. She's bugging me. It wasn't because it was the right thing to do. It's because she kept on saying, give me justice. Give me justice. No justice, no peace. Scriptural. Read that scripture and you see God's attitude. He's like, yeah, God will give you favor. It all goes back to God. Let's not get it twisted. So for the question, should Christians be against DEI? My answer is no. Christians should not be against DEI. Yes, we are kingdom citizens. Yes, we are in the world, but not of it. But we still in the world. And we cannot ignore certain things or act like they're not factors. What do you think?